Hi, my name's Penny, and today I wanted to talk about the series where I am waiting for more books. So I've already made some other series videos. I think the first one was about series where the series has been completed and I just need to finish it. So another video about series I need to catch up on, so ones where the series isn't completed, but there are still more books that I can read. But today is ones where it's on the author, I'm waiting for them, I'm super excited. Most of them I don't know when they're coming. So I'm going to talk about them in the order that they are on my Goodreads list. I have no idea what it's ordered by. It doesn't seem to make any sense to me. So it's a surprise order. So the first one is a pretty obvious one that I'm sure a lot of people are waiting for, and that is Winds of Winter by George R.R. Martin. The next book, the last book, maybe the last book in the Song of Ice and Fire series, or the Game of Thrones series, as a lot of people know. I'm trying to think how I would even synopsisize, definitely a word, synopsisize this series, given everyone kind of knows what it's about. Do they? It's basically an epic fantasy where different people vie for the throne and for power. You mainly follow this family, the Starks, although in the beginning you follow this family, the Starks, and their different children, but eventually it opens up to more and more characters until there's so many characters that, to be honest, I don't even know how much I really want to read the last book, because when it's all the characters you don't like, it's really tedious. But I still want to know what happens, and I can't just rely on the TV series. One, because I didn't watch much of the TV series, because in the beginning I kept getting bored because I already knew what was going to happen and I would forget to watch it. So I haven't been watching the TV series. Also, like, it's a bit overdone in my opinion, although I like some of it. Some of it's a bit ridiculous with the violence and the sex and unnecessary blah. But I think I want to read the last book to find out what happens, and I've heard that the TV series might have a different ending than the book, so you really can't rely on the TV series ending to tell you what happens in the book. But George R.R. Martin, who knows, he's been writing Winds of Winter for a long time. I'm hoping 2020, but... So the next book is Blood Witch by Susan Dennard. So this is the third and final book, I believe, in the Truth Witch series. To be honest, I don't really like the Truth Witch series that much. People talk about how it's got such a great friendship. That's the sales point that so many people put across. But for most of the second book, the two friends are not even in the same place. So you don't get much of their friendship. I just find the writing style really tedious and painful, and just like it's trying too hard. But I read the second book because there was a character called the Puppet in the first book who I was really intrigued by. In the second book they were a bit boring in the end, so that was disappointing. But I did end up liking the Blood Witch, who I forget what his name was, and Isolt, I can't remember how to say her name, but I quite like their relationship and their storyline. I don't really like the Truth Witch storyline, but I guess it's worth reading the final book for a bit more of the Blood Witch. Basically, it's a world where people have their different witch powers. As I said, there's a Truth Witch, which is quite rare. She can tell whether people are lying or tell the truth. The Blood Witch can like smell blood and track people using blood, but also I think he might be able to control blood. It's been a while since I read the second book, and I won't be rereading it before the third book. But the third book will probably remind me what was going on, hopefully. I think that book might be coming out this year. Maybe. As you can tell, I'm not that fussed about this one, but I will be reading it when it comes out. Probably from the library, though. So the next book I want to read, I don't think has a title yet, and that is the next Three Dark Crowns book by Kendara Blake. So Three Dark Crowns is another witch story set on an island where the queens always have triplets. The triplets are then divided up among the different factions. There's the poisoners who can consume poison without any ill effects. There's the naturalists who can control animals, and the elementals who have elemental powers. And when the princesses turn 16, they're expected to fight to the death and the winner gets the throne. But in the generation that this story follows, things haven't quite gone to plan, and by the time you get to the end of the second book, whew, it's off on a completely different tangent from where I thought it was going to go. I sometimes find the writing style a little bit clunky, but I enjoy the story enough that it kind of makes me overlook that. I'm excited for the third book, although I think that it's a 4-book series, not a trilogy, so this won't allow me to finish the series off. But I'm super excited to find out what happens next in the series, so I will read it as soon as it comes out. Then the next book is the next book in the Kate Daniels series by Ilona Andrews. So it's called Magic Triumphs. Every single book in the series is Magic something. That one's Magic Triumphs. I know when this one's coming out because I'm super excited for it. It's coming out in August, and I'm going to be rereading this series running up to that date because this is my favorite series of all time. It's set in this future in Atlanta where magic has started coming back, but it comes back in waves. So sometimes technology works, but when magic waves are up, technology doesn't work. But of course, when magic goes down, technology works and magic doesn't. Kate Daniels herself is a mercenary who often gets herself into trouble. She's very tough, but she can be a bit impulsive maybe, but she's also amazing. She gets involved in the Shapeshifter clan. There's a whole bunch of political stuff going on in that clan, but there's also all sorts of other kinds of mythology pulled into the story, which is what I really love about the story. Well, and the characters. I love all the characters. I think Ilona Andrews has a really great writing style where it's really action-based, but it's still really strong characters, a lot of humor, a lot of really cool concepts, basically everything that I love. So even though it's the 10th book in the series, I'm so super excited to reread all of them and then finally get to find out what happens. And the next book that I'm waiting for is Venom Her Veins by Jennifer Estep, which is the 17th book in the Elemental Assassin series. This is a series that my mum really likes, and I buy her a copy for her birthday and Christmas because there's normally 2 books come out a year. I don't know what I'm going to get my mum for birthday and Christmas once the series wraps up, but it's still going strong, so I'm not too worried about that. It's based around this woman named Jin who is an assassin, but it's also a lot about found family, and throughout the story, even though she does kill people, most of the time she does it because she's trying to protect other people. But there's also a bunch of like long running threads and different longer story arcs that go over several books. So it always makes you want to read the next book in order to find out the next step in that bigger mystery, even though also each book is quite a well-contained story in itself. Although I will admit that it can sometimes be a little bit predictable in that, you know, a bad person gets introduced, Jin kills them, there's a big battle, everyone's happy, but I still enjoy it. Everyone's happy at the end. Lots of action and then everyone's happy. Perfect. Then the next book that I think is coming out in about the middle of the year is the sequel to Vicious, which I think is going to be called Vengeful. So Vicious follows a couple of men who at university were studying extraordinaries, who are people who have extraordinary abilities. And then you also follow them later in their life when they've become enemies and they're essentially battling against each other, and it's told in a way that makes you really curious about how they got to that position. But also it has a whole bunch of extraordinaries and really cool different extraordinary abilities, and this is definitely one of my favorite books ever. So when I found out that there was going to be a sequel and maybe even another one after that, I think, because I think I read that Victoria Schwab was saying that originally she planned for it to be a trilogy. So let's hope that it's a trilogy, but at least this year we're going to get the sequel, and I'm super excited. I hope I can get a matching cover. The next book that I'm waiting on, I can never say the title of. I think it's the Lanyon. I probably said that wrong. It's the sequel to The Arithmetist by Brandon Sanderson. So this is a middle grade book, which is like all of Brandon Sanderson's books, in that the world is based around a really cool concept. So it's in a future where the United States has broken up into a whole bunch of different countries, I think, that are separated by water, if I remember correctly. But the cool thing is that there are these monsters that they fight, but they fight them using chalk drawings. So they have this whole defense system with drawing circles and then drawing creatures that can come to life and attack these other creatures. It follows this boy who was hoping to become one of these chalk drawers, but he doesn't pass the test. And even though he's still a part of the school because his mother works there, I think, there's this whole mystery throughout the story. I probably will read it. It was a while ago that I read it, so I'll probably read it again when the next one comes out. Brandon Sanderson on his website always posts like a summary of what he's working on, and this one keeps getting bumped, so I'm not sure when it's coming out, when he's going to make progress on it, but when he does, I am going to read it. I think especially because most of Brandon Sanderson's stories are epic and quite like enjoyable reads, but still quite tough reads, like quite dense. But because this is a middle grade series, there isn't that problem, so in my opinion that makes them even better. Then the next book is another one that lots of people are probably waiting for, and that is the third book of the Name of the Wind series by Patrick Rothfuss, which is going to be called Doors of Stone. This one has been coming for a long time. I think at one point it was going to be released the next year, but then that was years ago. I personally am hoping for 2020, so Patrick Rothfuss, that's what you should be aiming for. I mean, I expect that it's worth the wait because the storytelling in these books is quite amazing, and so it's not really surprising that he would need to put so much effort in, especially since it's the last book and it's going to need to wrap up all the things that he's introduced in the earlier books. So I think a lot of people know what the series is about, but basically you follow this man called Quoth. At the start of the story you meet him as a bartender out in the middle of nowhere, and then he starts telling his story about his life and how he studied at the University of Magic and how he battled the Chandrian and his musical passions. The whole time you're wondering how he ended up there, and also there's hints about what the world is like now, and you're wondering how did the world get to that situation. It's clear that Quoth had something to do with it, but we still don't really know what. Which is why I'm sure a lot of people cannot wait for the next book in this series. The next book is another entitled one, and that is the third book, and I think the final book in the... So the next book that I'm going to talk about is the Suntouch series, or the Diamara series by J.C. Hart. So J.C. Hart is a fellow New Zealander who I really like, and I also really like her work. This book is set in a future where they live on a planet and they've been told you can't go in the sun. If you go in the sun you get sick, you go crazy, people get really violent, but then she goes into the sun and it isn't what she expected at all. I know that Cassie has been thinking about writing some more of this, so hopefully we will get some more books at some point. I've really enjoyed a lot of the other books that Cassie's put out, and she has self-published all of her books, so look how beautiful that is for self-published. Beautiful. So I can't wait to read the next book in this series. Diabolic Trilogy by S.J. Kincaid. So I think I talked about this recently, but the Diabolic's set in a dystopian future where they have the technology, they're out in space, living on different planets, but they've banned learning, so nobody knows how this technology really works anymore, and when things break down they can't really do much about it. They've also got a really brutal political system that our main character gets involved in because she is a genetically engineered bodyguard and she ends up to protect her mistress. Is that a good word? No. So to protect the girl that she wants to look after, she has to take her place in the royal court. There's all kinds of space battles and time travel and different planets, and there's also some really cool philosophy about, is she really human considering she's been genetically engineered? Most people don't class her as human, but some do. Like, she's just trying to do the right thing. So then the last book that I am waiting on, I thought I would leave for last because I've been waiting many years. I think it's been like 20 years since the second book in the trilogy was released. And I'm talking about the Exiles Trilogy by Melanie Rowan. So I've shown this before, but my Exiles of Ambrai book is falling apart. I need to get a better copy of it, but my Mage Bond Trader is beautiful. These books basically follow three sisters who get raised by different political factions, and each have different magical abilities. And just there's this whole mystery going on, this amazing world. It's been a long time since I read it, because every time I think about rereading it, I remember that we're probably still going to have to wait a long time for the third book, and so I decided to put it off again. Basically, Melanie Rowan had a whole bunch of personal drama go on in her life. Her mother died, she got depressed, fair enough. She stopped writing the series. I believe she has started again, so I'm hopeful that we will get a third book, and then I will probably reread the whole trilogy. But while I'm really only willing to give George R. Martin and Patrick Rothfuss 2020, Melanie Rowan can take her time. I want her to take her time, get it right, and like take time for herself. But also, I really am looking forward to this book. So that's all the books that I'm waiting for. It's actually 11 books, which seems like a lot, although it's probably not that bad. It's also going to grow in the next year, so unlike my other series lists where I'm trying to get the number down, this one's obviously going to grow because a lot of those books are quite far in the future, and I'm going to finish some of the series where I just need to catch up, but the series isn't finished. So then, of course, those books will move on to this list as well. So let's share in our frustration. If you're also waiting for books, I would love to hear, especially ones that you're really excited about, because maybe I should catch up on those series too. Once I get my series list together, I won't feel so bad about starting new series. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.